Hey, Mitch.
Oh, hey, Ed, what's up with the getup today?
Hey, well, because we're doing Buck Rogers in the 25th century, I thought I'd, put on some spandex and some lycra because that's the rage in the 25th century. Everyone's wearing it 500 years in the future.
I don't know about that, man.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's true. Do you want to have a look?
Sure, what do we do?
Yeah, just turn on your air conditioner to high.
Oh, okay, hold on. Wow. The future looks pretty much the same as it did when I left. Hey, you're right, Ed. Spandex is the way of the future. By the way, did you lose weight or something?
Hi, this is Ed Dollister.
And this is Mitch Halleck.
And welcome to another exciting episode of Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure. Before we begin today, a big thank you to all our new viewers and especially those who have subscribed. We really appreciate it. If you're new to the show, though, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Mitch, if people want to, maybe subscribe or find out more about the show, what can they do?
Oh, Ed's, it's easy as being suspended in animation for 500 years. Simply hit the subscribe button or the notification button on the bottom of your screen, and you will be notified the next time Ed and I have a new show and go on an excellent adventure. And plus, while you're there, why not hit the old like button so Ed and I know that people really do care?
That's right. That would be nice. And something we care about, I don't know how deeply we care about it. I care about it pretty deeply, is Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, the classic TV series from 1979 starring Gerard and Erin Gray. And we thought we'd have a bit of a review, a look back at the show, and a little bit of a look at its origins. Were you a fan of Buck Rogers, Mitch?
Oh, Ed, Buck Rogers and me go way back. In fact, when I was a kid, I was given this book that's all battered and torn right here. And it was all the collected Buck Rogers newspaper strips because he was a comic strip character way before the movies back in the early 30s. And he was created by a fellow named
Philip Nolan. And it's interesting when I was reading up a bit about Buck Rogers that he first started in Amazing Stories back in 1928.
Yeah. In fact, the story was, I was going to say, it's not called Buck Rogers. It's called like Armageddon 2419 or something like that. 24. It was way 500 years in the future or something like that.
He was Anthony Rogers. He wasn't Buck Rogers. And right. There was a sequel story and it was quite successful. And then they decided to syndicate it in the papers in the late 20s and early 30s. And it's spawned a number of copycat comic strips. So Buck Rogers was the granddaddy, but it actually caused the creation of Flash Gordon from Alex Raymond.
Yeah, that's it. Buck Rogers was literally the granddaddy of all these science fiction strips that came out there because of his popularity too. And you're right, they wasn't called Buck Rogers to start off with, but he was in all the strips. I mean, this was something that was like a phenomenon. I think it was around the world too, because people couldn't get enough of the spaceships and the alien worlds and all that stuff. And I even have some pictures here. He looks a little different than he did. This is Wilma During, or Wilma. She doesn't look anything like our.
No, she looks very Art Nouveau, I think.
Yeah. All this stuff is that Art Deco kind of look. And there's Buck himself back in the 30s and how he went down there. But it's of its time because you'll see some depictions of aliens that really aren't too cool by modern standards. It's not that PC, but it really is very imaginative. I remember reading this whole book cover to cover. In fact, so much the pages have fallen out. I couldn't get enough of Buck Rogers. And you know what was even better than that? There was a Buck Rogers serial starring Buster Crabbe, Olympic gold medal, twice gold medal winner, Buster Crabbe for swimming, I believe. And that was on the local TV stations out here. Every Saturday, you'd get a chapter of the Buck Rogers serial. And I remember going outside, and when you took the garden hose, and if you bent it and put the water on full blast, you could make the water shoot out of it, and you could tie the nozzle on it, make it like a ray gun. And I remember that was my Buck Rogers ray gun. I'd go in the backyard and blast my sisters with the water and get the dog and the cat. They didn't like that.
Well,
but then after
I was just going to say that's funny because my dad made me a traditional sort of Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers style ray gun, but out of a power drill. So he took out all the insides, and then he put a metal pole on the end and all these different tubes and everything like that. So it looked like a ray gun, and it was huge, and it was that was great fun.
Oh, I know. We didn't have toys. We just had simple household tools. But there was that. And I remember being in love so much with Buck Rogers. The spaceships they had literally were like sparklers. That's what they call them here. They're like those rods with like gunpowder on them. And you light them and they just do sparkles. And I remember making spaceships and I putting sparklers in the back and then lighting them and throwing them. And I was like, that's my Buck Rogers spaceship. And then after that, they would show Flash Gordon Conquers the Universe, which was a different character. But guess what? Buster Crabbe's in that too. And he's playing Flash Gordon. So it's kind of like the Harrison Ford of the 30s. He was Han Solo and he's Indiana Jones. So Buster Crabbe was the guy. He was also Tarzan.
Did you know they often shared sets
with
with Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon. And in fact, Buck Rogers' belt is actually Flash Gordon's belt, just turned upside down.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised because other than Buster Crabbe having bleached blonde hair, well, it was lighter. Obviously, it's black and white. It's the same, kind of the same story. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But there was robots in it. Oh, there was all kind of cool stuff. Real cheesy looking, but for their time, they had a guy that kind of looked like Robbie the Robot and such, and the Tiger Man, and then the bad guy. He's in the TV show.
Killer Kane was
Killer
in
Kane.
there.
That's it. Killer Kane was the bad guy.
They had all these characters. You had Ardala and obviously Dr. Hewer, Buck Rogers, Wilma Deering, all these characters. And then sort of Buck Rogers faded a little bit into obscurity until the 70s came along. And then, of course, we say this for so many things. We mentioned it, of course, on our Logan's Run show, but Star Wars came along.
Star Wars.
And then everyone was clamoring to try and get that next hot science fiction property. Of course, around that time, just after, was Battlestar Galactica. You can check out our Battlestar Galactica show that we talk about that fantastic series.
Yeah. You know what I always wonder, if Battlestar didn't get moved around so much and get canceled, maybe there wasn't going to be a Buck Rogers because it's the same producer, Glenn Larson.
Yes.
I think it's Universal. I believe they producer both of them, the same production company. But Battlestar went off the air after 18 episodes, 78. And then they make this Buck Rogers movie. And I can't remember, you'll know who it was. They didn't want Gil Gerard at first. They wanted Kurt Russell. If I imagine, Kurt Russell was the one they approached because he was younger. And that's who they kind of thought should be Buck Rogers, but he turned the role down. I don't know if he had another movie or he just didn't want to do it.
I think he was trying to move into movies at that stage. And you're absolutely right. He was around 25 at the time. Buck Rogers was a younger person, but along came Gil Gerard. Gil Gerard had really only done a few maybe telemovies. He had a guest shot in Little House on the Prairie, and a few other things like that. But he read really well, and he was 35 at the time, so he was a little bit older. They decided to go with the older version of it, and you're absolutely right. They were looking at doing it as a telemovie or a movie of the week. But they ended up, after Battlestar Galactica did so well being released in cinemas, they released the movie version in the cinemas of Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. And it did really well. It made $21 million, which is, not Star Wars money, but
but for a movie, for a TV production movie.
And I don't know if you've seen the movie version recently.
I have not.
We all know the opening of the TV series. We mimicked it in the opening of our show, but the opening to the movie, you've got to watch it. It is it's actually like the opening of a James Bond film.
I was gonna say it's supposed to be like a James Bond movie because they got the Erin Gray, and I don't know who the other actress is. It's not
Pamela Hensley.
Is it Pamela Hensley rolling around on top of the letters? Yeah. So they have the whole
They've
Buck
got all
Rogers
the
is
actresses that were in there in silver spandex,
silver
looking very seductive
or something. Yeah, spandex. And they're what I heard is the lights that they use, because they just did the letters Buck Rogers and they had lights underneath the stage, but they were so hot. They were like the actresses are like burning themselves as they're laying on top of this like glass. They're like, oh my, this is not comfortable as they're filming, and they're rolling all over the glass, just like you said, like a James Bond.
Erin Gray looks directly into your soul when she does her head.
Yes.
Luckily,
And,
luckily we didn't recreate that for our opening.
No, well, we were going to, but you know, the hair on my legs was getting singed. But what happens is, I think Buck is just like laying there unconscious, and they're kind of rolling around trying to wake him up. So, I mean, he must have been in some suspended animation.
I think if no wonder he stayed dreaming for 500 years. If that's was
well, we never really told people what the story is. Real quickly, if you don't know what Buck Rogers is, it's about a guy. And I can't remember in the comic strip what year it was, but in the movies, it's in 1987, and he gets in the movie. In the comics, he's in a cave and there's gas that comes out and he gets knocked out for 500 years. In the movie, he's in a space shuttle.
Yeah,
well, it looks like a space shuttle.
Yeah, Ranger the 3. Space shuttle, and
yeah. And his oxygen tank, something happens to it, and it's the gas comes out and puts him in a cryogenic freeze, and he just circles
hibernation.
Because everything was New Chicago.
It was New Chicago.
New this.
And the Badlands, obviously I always like how, things go really well for some societies and then they just let the others
some hit the
live on the outskirts.
It looks like a real bad section of town. But you know what, though? We talk about that. It kind of looks like, what's the Charlton Heston movie? Omega Man?
Yes.
Where they have like the outside world has been wrecked by nuclear holocaust and there's mutants out there and all the buildings are burnt. And they show Buck Rogers going there. And they don't do that ever again on the TV show. They get away from that dark element too. But do you remember in the movie, he goes and finds the grave of his parents?
Yes.
It's like, wow, that's survived a nuclear blast and everything for 500 years. And he could read the names just perfectly, which is amazing to me because we have headstones down the road here from 1800s, 1700s. You could barely make out the letters, but not Buck Rogers' mom and pop, boy. They could easily make out when they were born and when they died. And
plot holes, no erosion.
Stop. Oh, but we got to talk about the rest of the cast. You already mentioned Erin Gray. She plays Commander Wilma Deering.
Here she is, the gorgeous Erin Gray.
Yes, or as I know her personally, the woman in charge of Heroes for Hire talent agency, because that's who I book my guest for Terrificon through. She's one of the actors' agents. And it's often bizarre to have my phone ring and it says Erin Gray on it. And I pick it up and it's her. And I'm like, oh boy, it's Erin Gray. And then I have to quickly, she's not wearing spandex when she calls, by the way.
Well, you don't know that.
Well, I don't know that, but it is kind of odd. And I talk to my friends and they go, who do you know? And I go, look, Erin Gray. Oh, Erin Gray. Because she was like a heartthrob for all the teenage boys and younger boys around the late 70s and such. So she was his co-star. And then who else do we have?
William Deering, who was sort of
Wilma Deering.
She was quite the hard-nosed military captain, and she was a good foil to Gil Gerard or Buck Rogers' 20th century colloquialisms and little one-off jokes and everything like that. So you had those two.
Besides Erin Gray, who else was in the cast, Ed?
So we had Tim O'Connor, who played Dr. Hure, who was in charge and basically sat in his white office with his white spandex. Everyone had white spandex.
Everybody had white spandex. Very
It would
clean.
get so dirty in that place. I mean,
wouldn't want the cleaning bill around there. No.
And of course, I suppose the thing that people most remember is Twiki the robot, voiced by Mel Blanc.
Yeah, beep. Hey, Buck.
Bit. Nice one, Buck.
Bit. Nice one, Buck. Yeah. The voice of Bugs Bunny and a million other voices, Mel Blanc.
And played by Felix Silla, who was in the suit.
And did you ever notice that Twiki's head resembled a male sex organ?
I thought it was more of a mushroom.
Okay, whatever. It depends on what your point of view. But they were going for an unusual look with Twiki. Let's just say that. I thought they were going for that Pharaoh look with like the Colonial Viper with the lights when you see his head, right?
I thought he had the Dorothy Hamill haircut.
He did have the Dorothy Hamill, but he also looks like a penis head sometimes. Anyway, besides that, on his chest.
Did you know? Yes, he has Dr.
I do know what a male
Theopolis.
penis looks like. Yes, but
No.
besides that, he has Dr.
Dr.
Theodopolis.
Theopolis.
Yeah, Theodopolis.
Theopolis.
He's a Greek computer, right?
He is, and
I don't know how.
He's carried around, and they were inseparable. And he was really the
R2
voice.
And 3PO.
He was the voice and reason, whereas Mel Blancs provided Twiki with just a few little, human phrases and catchphrases that he caught on from Buck Rogers. But originally they were going to have Twiki just sort of do beeps and bloops and everything like that. Right. And they thought it would be a little bit too close to R2D2. So that's why they changed that.
I would say so. Yeah. But he was a cool guy. I met Felix Silla. He's a really cool actor. He was a stuntman for years. He did the stunts on Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. He was short round stunt person.
Yes.
He was in movies. He did a movie with a guy I was in a movie once with, George Siegel. I think it was called The Big Sleep. And he was telling me all stories about how he'd hang out in the trailer with George Siegel and smoke weed. Hey, they're a little behind the scenes. They're both dead now. So who's going to contradict me? Anyway, the other person in the cast wasn't there the military guy? I guess no, that's it. No, we're forgetting the bad guys. That's what I'm thinking of.
That's right. So you had Princess Ardala, played by the beautiful Pamela Hensley, who appeared in the movie and in a number of episodes. I think 4 episodes in the first season.
And Matt Houston. Remember Matt Houston?
I do, actually.
The detective? Yeah, she was the like his liaison. She ran the agency.
Okay.
But that's neither here nor there. But Pamela Hensley was part of the Universal casting. Whenever Universal tried to revive the old studio cast system.
Yes.
And in that small group of potential actors who they were going to groom and become huge stars was another guy, Star Wars connection, Harrison Ford. So it's Harrison Ford, Pamela Hensley, and a couple other actors here or there that was part of the Universal Stars of Tomorrow program. But
and in the movie,
Harrison left.
Yes.
And who else was in the cast of Baddies, Ed?
So we had Killer Kane, who was played by Henry Silva in the movie, and then he wasn't available for the TV series, so they got Michael Ansara to play the role.
Mm-hmm.
And they had
Michael Ansara married to Barbara Eden, I Dream a Genie, and then went on to be the voice of Mr. Freeze on Batman, and was in Star Trek as the Klingon. Michael Ansara had a very long career. He was King Kamehameha.
Sorry, say that again.
He was King Kamehameha on a 2 episode of I Dream a Genie Goes to Hawaii.
He was. Oh my gosh. Yes, I do remember that one. Mm-hmm. And you also got to see a variety of different guest stars on there.
Oh, no, you forgot Tiger Man, the man who died and came back.
Yes, in the movie version, movie version, he was killed. But when they re-showed the movie as the TV pilot, they re-edited it.
Yeah.
And he survived because that was Princess Ardala's, strongman essentially.
Yeah, and then they get a different guy to play him too. So go figure that out. It's a different.
No one noticed. No one noticed.
These kids.
Yeah, they had a variety of really good guest stars. I think the most notable was not Gary Coleman, but was Buster Crabbe, who played,
that's right. Yes,
who played Commander
Colonel
Rogers.
Gordon.
Yeah, that's it, Gordon.
No, but they also had a bunch of other people. They had Jack Palance was on. I remember he was like some type of outer space flim flam man, and he was really overacting. He was like a minister or something. He's like,
are you talking about him with the glowing hands?
Yes, with the glowing hands. Yes. Speaking of Logan's Run, some of the background from Logan's Run, the city was used in Buck Rogers. When they go walking through, sometimes you'll see they got a lot
of the things from, I think it was the 1967 World's Fair. Some of those buildings they were using, they used a lot of the sets and costumes and props from Battlestar Galactica. You would often see some of the effects they would use as well.
But I'll tell you, it's not a bad show. The first season, the first season of Buck Rogers was really cool.
It was lighthearted. There was a lot of witty, banter. It didn't take.
They got some things wrong, though. They got things wrong because Buck said, back in the 80s, disco dancing was the thing. And he does this little disco dance and he teaches Twiki how to disco dance. No, that was over with by the 80s. So I don't know what the hell that's about.
But he's right, because he's brought it back to the 2020. It's still here. So,
it's still, I know. I mean, look at you.
That's right.
And some reason, I mean, they must have wiped out cotton clothes because everybody wore spandex, and
I believe the clothing companies were actually controlled by the deodorant factories. So that's that way, they could, be a symbiotic relationship. But things were not all smooth sailing for Buck Rogers.
No.
The first season did really well. And,
but he
the ratings were good. It was quite popular.
Yeah.
But Gil Gerard wasn't exactly happy with the direction it was traveling in. He was a bit worried that he kept making, just like, jokes a bit Roger Moore, like, with the one-liners, too many things like that, and wanted to be a bit more serious. There was a writer's strike at the end of the first season. So that caused some problems, and they brought it back for season 2. They got a whole new writing team.
Yeah.
They got rid of Dr. Hewer, Dr. Theopolis.
Yeah, they're all gone.
Got rid of Princess Ardala, Killer Kane. Yeah. And they were on the Searcher, which was
the Searcher,
which was a spaceship, which essentially was the Enterprise.
Yeah, but now they were looking for the lost colony from Earth, which is kind of like a variation of the Battlestar Galactica show.
Well, Glenn Larson was a Mormon, and I think he was trying to inject a lot of those.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense, because I was like, what is up with this same storyline about this lost tribe? Because the Mormons were looking for they're basically the lost tribes of Israel.
Yes.
Prester John, there's supposed to be 12 tribes of Israel, one left and came to America. And that's supposed to be the lost tribe that starts the Mormon culture. I could be wrong, but I'm remembering this from religion class. So that does make sense if you're just looking at it in a space concept, that they're looking for this other world type of lost Earth colony. So yeah, I could see.
So it sort of followed that, and really more Star Trek. So it followed that.
Hawk,
the
Mr. Spock of Buck Rogers, the dude with that.
He was so serious. His costume looked great. His spaceship looked great, but
his hair looked just cool. I mean, it was like a bunch of
feathers.
It was a feather bathing cap. Yeah. It was a bathing cap.
Yeah, it was essentially.
And he was the last of his kind too. Who was the actor that played him?
Tom Christopher.
That's it. Tom Christopher.
And I always loved how he spelt Tom, because it was THOM.
Oh yeah, that means he's an actor.
That's right, an actor. And that's when they had Dr. Goodfellow, who was the bumbling scientist who was looking for the new colonies.
Wilfred Hyde, right? From My Fair Lady.
Yes, he played. Yes. He was Doolittle's offsider.
Yeah, he was, and the father of Alex Hyde White, whose son went on to be Mr. Fantastic and Fantastic Four. And the hands of Sean Connery. Of Henry Jones Sr. in Indiana Jones. I know this because I interviewed the man for like 2 hours one day. But anyway, I digress. And then you had the grandson or great-great-great-grandson of Isaac Asimov as the captain of the spaceship. I don't know the actor's name. Yeah, the Searcher.
And essentially, it didn't rate well. The changes were too drastic. They changed... Erin Gray essentially went from her blonde to her natural hair color, so she was brunette in that. Yeah. She did. She was more like
she did. She looked like she should be on board the Love Boat. She had this little sailor outfit, this little what the hell, she went from the spandex jumpsuit to literally like a cocktail waitress. No offense.
So it was a truncated season. Yeah. It didn't last long.
And 13 episodes, maybe.
Yeah, something 15? Like that, and was axed. Unfortunately. Not before that long, though. They did come out with a lot of toys and merchandise because it was a hit. We had Mego.
Yeah.
Brought out some fantastic little 3 3/4 action figures who were better than I won't say better than the
Star they had better because they had the articulation, they had the jointed shoulders and the knees, so they actually moved more than the 5 points that you had for the
That's Star Wars. You got some great vehicles, spaceships as well.
Yeah. The spaceships were Ralph McQuarrie. Speaking of Star Wars, he designed all the drawings and the spaceships for both Battlestar and Buck Rogers. In fact, the ship that Buck uses was supposed to be the Colonial Viper in Battlestar. They didn't want it, so they used it on Buck Rogers, and he designed another ship for the Colonial Viper. But no, going back to the toy line, they also did 3 3/4, but they did. A line were they 12
inch figures,
10 inches?
They did.
Yeah, those were
Buck
really
Rogers,
well done.
Killer Kane. they suffer from the same fate as the Moonraker figures, where the heads are made from a different plastic than the bodies, and their heads turn blue.
No, really?
The degradation of the plastic.
Oh, I did not know that. I wonder what happened to those, because I never see those at all the conventions I do and shows I go to. I never see the big Buck Rogers toys, you know?
So they made a variety of, there was a fantastic, which I was, in my research, I was going, I didn't remember this when I was going in, but when I saw the pictures, I remembered it. The Buck Rogers pinball machine from 1980.
I don't remember the pinball machine.
The 7980, it by Gottlieb. It looks amazing, which is fantastic.
I remember they had a comic book. It wasn't Marvel, it was Dell Comics, and they did an adaptation of the movie, and then they did original stories. And then speaking of original stories, there were some paperback novels.
Yes.
I remember seeing some Buck Rogers paperback novels. But I'll tell you one thing, they didn't do this. The original cartoon from the 30s, they made some ray guns and all that. I don't think they came out with a Buck Rogers blaster, did they?
They had a few. If you think of rack toys, you know, the ones, those cheap toys.
Yeah,
they did have a Buck Rogers blaster, but nothing too elaborate. The only other thing I've got here is, I'll just go and grab it, is my usual Buck Rogers. This is the Super 8 version of the film.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
It's the entire film.
Yeah.
In 9 minutes.
Well, there you go. You don't need anything besides it. And then the other thing I was going to say is they did release it on a laser disc. If people remember laser disc, because I remember seeing Buck Rogers in the 25th Century laser disc when it came out. Oh, it had to be 1981 early on. And then it's been out. I don't know if it was on VHS, but I do know they did the DVD of the TV series. And it's on Blu-ray.
I've got the Blu-ray. Yes, I've got the Blu-ray set. So they've brought out season 1 and 2 on Blu-ray. Which
is there any commentaries or anything on it? Any extras?
There's a few extra features, but they're to do with extended versions. So you get like the movie version and the pilot version, but the movie version is just DVD quality, whereas the pilot version is Blu-ray, you know.
Oh, really?
HD.
Okay.
But they have just released also a box set that includes the Blu-ray version of the movie, so you can get everything. And the pictures look great. We just watched yesterday Vegas in Space, one of the early episodes. Looking at the fashions, I would fit. I certainly would fit right in.
Space Vampires was one. Did they have that one on there? Space Vampires is really bad because you can see the makeup on the guy's ears. It's really one of the cheesier ones. But Aaron Gray just screams that whole episode. It's just like a horror movie.
I don't mind.
They don't. You know what's sad about the show? They had good production values. They had decent costumes. They just didn't know what the hell to do with it. They really didn't. They were just like struggling. They're like, oh, we'll do this. The kids are dumb. They'll watch it. You know, I don't know.
They did later on I think it was in the early 2000s. There was they were looking at doing either a web series or something like that. Gerard and Erin Gray appeared as the parents to like Buck Rogers Jr. And you can find the very short scene on YouTube, but I don't think anything came of it. I can't find any other episodes. It was going to be like a web, like a web series or something like that.
Yeah.
And of course, they've just recently announced that they're looking at doing a reboot of Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. And at the moment, George Clooney is attached.
George Clooney, I heard that. Well, then there was some held up legally because they said it's supposed to be public domain. But then the folks that were the heirs to the estate said, we still own the rights to it. So it kind of got held up in a bunch of legal red tape there. The only spin-off that's been popular is Duck Dodgers, which is
in the 24th and a half century. Yes.
Yeah. Duck Dodgers. That's Warner Brothers Daffy Duck, but he does a whole series. In fact, there was a whole season of Duck Dodgers. I mean, Kevin Smith came on as the Green Lantern, and then he met Marvin the Martian. So there's like a weird spin-off altered world Buck Rogers, and it's all with Daffy Duck. So
there's some board games as well. There's not just
I'm sure there's puzzles and trading
not
cards.
Just released. Sorry, say that again.
I said I'm sure there was a trading cards and a puzzle
If
because
there
that was
is,
standard back in the day. It's like you had a board game, puzzle, and trading cards, no matter what
yes.
show it was. Charlie's Angels, Battlestar Galactica. I'm sure Buck Rogers. I'm sure there's a lunchbox somewhere on YouTube. We're gonna have to, or eBay. We're gonna have to find a Buck Rogers lunchbox.
Yes, I will put up a picture of it right now if there is one. So
There
was also a little bit after the TV series came out, but I remember playing it in the arcades, Buck Rogers and Planet of Zoom. And it was a really good, like a flight simulator video game. Yeah, which was really good.
That.
It was more tied to the 30s and 40s idea of Buck Rogers. But
you know what's weird? They didn't have any home video games. I don't remember any Atari or Mattel and television or ColecoVision.
No, not of Buck Rogers. I think it just sort of missed that. Even the handhelds, they didn't have any.
Yeah, no. I mean, I had a Battlestar Galactica handheld game.
There was a toy where you could put your figure in a spaceship and you look through it and you could sort of shoot different spaceships and things like that. Yeah, it wasn't really a video game.
You know what? It's so funny. Game. We were talking about Mego Toys. They really cheaped out on the little bridge set that they had, where it was supposed to be the landing field or whatever. Yes. You had to cut the back of the box up to get the landing strip to have the spaceships go on it. Like, there goes that mitten box, because, hey, kids, if you want to play with it, make it look like the picture on the box, you have to cut the box up. I mean, it probably made sense back then because they weren't thinking of collectability, but that means you're not going to find any mitten box, because basically you had to destroy the box to play with it.
That's true. Sorry. But there are certainly collectibles out there. If you're interested, check out eBay. There's some fun ones that aren't too expensive. There are some things like the pinball, which but look fantastic. Yeah. So there's lots to love in Buck Rogers, especially, as you said, the first season. It's a lot of fun. It's humorous. Erin Gray.
And the movie's good.
Erin Gray all day. Gerard is quite funny. It's interesting. I understand how he, wanted to wear high belts when it came to wearing spandex, because it doesn't hide anything.
It's not very flattering.
No,
let's just say that. Every bulge you could see. And then, I was going to say, there was another co-star on that show. Was it David Groh? He had big, black, thick, curly hair. He was like, I can't think of his name, but he was on the show too. Not Dirk or something. He was like a rival to Buck in the first season. He was on a few episodes. I can't think of his name, but
I did laugh at his costume choice in Vegas in space. It was
the vest, the Han Solo
with a black, and he wore that in the second season as well. And there was a little bit of a Harrison Ford-esqueness to Gerard.
Yeah. Well, then he started going for that. They started wearing whatever they wanted to, because doesn't he switch over to that brown suede jacket, kind of like Starbuck wore in the second season? Everybody was doing their own thing. I think they were just like, here's one for you. It ended after like 13 or so episodes. You mentioned the writer's strike. I think they took one of the unaired episodes or the scripts and they turned that into one of the novel.
They did. Yeah. They did actually. Was it something like That Man on Beta or something like that?
Something like that.
The name of the book. So there's lots out there. It's a great fun series. I'd certainly recommend you can binge watch it pretty easily. There's quick. Only 45 episodes or something like that. It's great fun. It's a little bit kitsch, but that's kind of cool. And what better to do is to wear your spandex while you're watching it, so you can really relive the experience of Buck Rogers.
Sure.
Now, if you want to find out about other 70s TV shows, or perhaps movies like Logan's Run that we've covered, and some other sort of spandex era, the Star Wars Holiday Special, how can you find out, Mitch?
That's easy, Ed. Just go to the Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure page here on YouTube, and you can look through our entire catalog of other episodes. We're up to about 40, almost 50 pretty soon.
There's 45.
Yes, $6 Million Man, all the disaster movies, King Kong 1976, our best horror movies, our best Christmas movies. We've got something for everybody waiting for you. And all you have to do is follow us, subscribe, like us, do something. Come on, man. Come on.
Please.
Buck, BB, what's his name? Not Twiki. Would watch too. And we forgot to mention, even Mel Blanc took off for a while. He wasn't Twiki for the whole show. They got another guy in there named Bob Elliott who talks totally different than Twiki did, but they don't even talk about why. And then Mel Blanc comes back for the last 6 episodes. So I don't know. Maybe he had a cold or something. So.
I did hear he was not well at that time.
Oh, is that really? I
that's why.
What happened there? Oh,
yeah. So obviously Twiki was having his voice box decoder, fixed, and they changed it. That's all they needed.
He had a cold. He had a cold.
Yeah, that's it. He had a computer virus, obviously. So Buck Rogers, that's it. Check out our series. Don't forget to put a comment in if you enjoyed the show. Is there something you really like? Did you have a crush on Erin Gray like I did as a child and most other people did? Put it down in the comments.
You want to call her right now?
Oh, don't. Not a video call like this. I don't think.
Yeah, in that outfit, she'd love that. She'd be like, "Oh God."
This spandex goes all the way. You should see the elbow joints.
It does.
I'll show you later.
Gotta have ventilation, Ed.
That's right. I'll show you later. So that's it for this week's episode of Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure. This is Ed Dollister.
And this is beep. Mitch
nice
Allen.
One, Buck.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.